All right, everyone, it is 7 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining us this evening for our Summer Area Leaders webinar in advance of our Area Leaders meeting on Saturday. So appreciate you taking some time to be with us this evening. We're going to cover some important information that'll lead to some good discussions on Saturday. So thanks so much for being here. As a reminder, if you have not yet registered for Saturday's meeting and you are planning to attend, please make sure you do so. The link has been sent out in both by email and in the area memo. We just want to make sure that we have the right count for food and snacks and all that good stuff. So please make sure you do that if you're planning on joining us on Saturday. So tonight on the webinar, in addition to me, we also have Mike Zarnowski. We'll do some sports updates, and George Hergenhan in his swan song of Area Leaders webinar will be joining us to go over finance. So quick agenda for this evening. I'm not sure if we'll go till 9 o'clock. I'm not even sure we'll go to 8:45. I was pretty generous on times, but you can see we're going to go over some staffing updates because we do have a lot of changes that have happened and that are going to be happening. George will lead us in a finance update. Mike will lead us in a sports update. And then I'm just going to do a really quick update on development on behalf of Nate, who's not able to join us tonight. But for the most part, that's just going to be queuing up some conversation that we'll have on Saturday. After that, we'll do some local program updates, some reminders of the meetings, and then quick wrap up at the end. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the question box or raise your GoToWebinar hand, and we can unmute your line and you can ask it there. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. We will pause periodically for you to ask any questions, or you can hold them till the end, whatever is easier for you. So without any further delay, we are going to go ahead and get started with our staffing updates. This slide is the individuals who have left and will be leaving their current role with Special Olympics Maryland. So Kara will be leaving us as Director of Interscholastic Unified Sports. Luke Weyerbach has recently left as our Volunteer Director. Ron Freeman will be transitioning into his new role as Baltimore City Coordinator, but leaving his former role as Baltimore Region Director. We can talk a little bit about the difference there. Ryan Kelchner will be leaving us in August as part of his AmeriCorps program in Western Maryland. It's a one-year grant program, so he will be out of that role. Development, Jacqueline Bress, our Senior Director of Special Events, has left, and George will be retiring shortly. So just an update on those positions. Currently, some of you probably remember, we still have a vacant sports director position from when Kendall Zeswitz left. So we're holding some in-person interviews now. The IUS director, that position has been posted. We have a unified tennis chair position that's stipended, that's posted. We have a brand new AmeriCorps IUS Unified Champion School Coordinator. That position's been posted. I'm happy to say that we have hired a volunteer director and the offer is made and she has accepted. So Sam Boyd will be joining our team. Our AmeriCorps Western Region Coordinator, that person has been hired, and we will announce their name right as soon as we get some signed paperwork from him. Our Baltimore Region Director, we are on second round interviews. Our Special Events Director, that position description is under review by Nate Garland. Also in development, we have a part-time development data entry team member. They're starting some in-person interviews there. And our CFO, we're currently working with the board there. At this time, I am going to unmute George because he was going to have some updates on his end about the CFO position that he wanted to share. So George, you're off mute and you can provide any updates that you had on your position.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. Jeff, you've summed it up very well. Working with the board to review the position description. Um, the position description for CFO hasn't been reviewed for probably 15 years. I've been in the position for over 12, and I'm sure it wasn't reviewed a lot before then. So several members of the board have been offering their input on the position description, and they've also been offering their input on places to advertise it, so that we get as wide an exposure as we possibly can to get a good number of candidates. At this time, the goal is to advertise the position by the end of the week. So you will all be copied on that when it's advertised, and if you could circulate it amongst your network and anyone you know who might be interested, that would be appreciated. And we'll continue moving towards interviews and the hiring process. So that's a real quick update on where we are.
Awesome. Thanks, George. And please know that lines were muted, so all of the noisemakers and celebrations that were happening when you were talking about your retirement could be heard. So, because we're happy for you. And just some updates as we continue to move on. So as positions are filled, we will update the Leader Quick Resource Guide and sending that out. That can also be found on the local program resource page. So one thing to remember, that has all of the contact information for who you should call or email in certain cases, but when in doubt, contact the supervisor. So anything sports related, Steve Bennett. For school programs, Melissa Kelly. For community programs or volunteers, you can contact me. Or in development, you can contact Nate. And as I said, if you're still not sure, just contact me and we'll make sure that you are pointed in the right direction. So exciting time at Special Olympics Maryland. I think in talking to Rhonda, we've never had this many vacancies before. So lots of searches and hirings going on. So we're going to be excited to welcome some new team members really soon. With that, I'm going to unmute George's line again, and he's going to lead us through a finance update. So, George, you are unmuted.
Thanks, Jeff. If you could go to the next slide. Sure. Okay, so we're going to do a couple things tonight. We're going to give you a quick financial update on the state program and the local programs. We'll talk very briefly about the 2020 budget process, and we are converting to a new credit card, and we'll update you on that and tell you why we're doing that and what the benefits and advantages of it are. So Jeff, next slide, please.
Great. Do you want the state budget or the area program budget first?
State first. State's fine.
State. Perfect.
Okay, so this is the summary that we present to the board at every meeting, the board and the finance committee. This is as of April. We have closed June, but just within the last couple days. So I did not get a chance to update that for you. But looking at the state program as of April, on the Jeff, I'm looking at the one that says finance updates now. So did something happen? There we go. Now I'm looking at the summary. This is the area summary I'm looking at, Jeff. Can we see the state? There we go. Okay. Looking at the state program and looking at the projection for 2019 on the right-hand side of the top section, you can see that we are forecasting revenue of just over $6 million and expenses of just the same, just over $6 million, for a surplus of about $34 million, $34,000, excuse me, $34,000. The budget was a surplus of 137, and the difference here is that about 3-4 months ago, well, probably a little bit earlier than that, a decision was made to move away from the Blackbaud peer-to-peer fundraising system. It was not providing what we needed, and Blackbaud was not providing what they had promised. And so we have made the move to a peer-to-peer fundraising system called Classy. Unfortunately, there are costs involved with that move. So on a budget of $137,000 surplus, we have estimated the cost at about $100,000. So that's the difference between the budget and the forecast. Our cash position continues to improve. We have started putting away, we have successfully put away or invested reserves over the last couple of years, and we will continue to do that. So our cash position is improving. You see some of the other the situation I just explained with Blackbaud and conversion to Classy is just one of the reasons, or just one of the variances in our budget. Down below, you see some of the additional variances, which are normal for a budget process. You always have variances between budget and actual. So without going into a lot of detail, I mean, every event has a slight difference between budget and actual. So without going into a whole lot of detail, you can just see the different categories of revenue and expense and how they're varying from budget to actual, and how they're producing that surplus of 34,000. As I mentioned, we have just recently, just within the last day or two, closed June, and this picture has improved a little bit. We're now up to about $122,000 surplus, where we had the 34,000. That's now about 120. There are a couple reasons for that. As Jeff mentioned, we have a lot of openings at this point, and that leads to savings in salary and benefits. And we also had a situation with a grant where we had anticipated charging some school expenses to a grant that supports the IOS program. And unfortunately, the school system was unable to get the program started as quickly as we had hoped. They're going to add some schools to the IOS program next school year. We had hoped they would be able to do that this year. But what that means from a financial standpoint is that we were able to charge some expenses to that grant that we had anticipated paying out of Special Olympics general funds. So some improvement there from a $34,000 projection up to about 120 at this point. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, we can take a quick look at the area summary. So Jeff, if you want to move on. Okay. So this is the area summary as of March. We have been a little busy lately, so we haven't completed the closing of areas for May. This is grant season. We have several large grants that are on a school year basis or a July to June basis. So we've been quite busy with reports and applications. So unfortunately, all I have for you at this point is the area program as of March. I'll share this summary with you through May once it's completed. But there's a lot of, as always, there's a lot of information to present on a summary like this. There are 18 separate programs. If you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see with each program, we've explained why the bottom, this is an explanation of why the bottom line, the revenue minus the expense, is above or below budget. And you'll see a couple of common reasons running throughout the explanations. The investment income is one that's mentioned quite frequently here. The stock market has been doing quite well this year. And so everyone who has investments is seeing the benefit of that. The second most common reason here is more than likely just timing differences. With so many budgets, it's really difficult to pin it down to a month by month numbers. So we appreciate. I know Darlene contacts a lot of you when she's working on this, and we appreciate your quick feedback to her. So unless there's any questions, be happy to answer any questions. Or if you don't have the questions tonight, please just email me or Darlene, and we'll be happy to answer them. Okay,
great.
So Jeff,
Questions, Jeff, so we can keep moving.
Yeah, I think the next topic is the budget process, and I just want to mention very quick. So there should be, okay, so this is the this was scheduled for preparing the current year's budget. So this was the schedule for preparing the 2019 operating budget. We anticipate that the 2020 schedule will be very similar to this. So approximately the same days. We'll be getting it started in early August. But I wanted to give you guys a chance to either ask questions or offer any input. If anybody thinks there should be any changes to this schedule, please let us know. You can let me know tonight, bring it up now, or you can email us. Because right now we are not aware of any major issues that would affect this schedule. So please, take your time, look at it, email me if you have any questions or comments. We will be sending this out towards the end of July for 2020.
Great. And we can, we'll leave some time at the meeting on Saturday to go through any concerns or feedback here. So don't feel like you have to come up with questions, concerns, ideas about the budget process right now. We can always.
There's certainly time, as Jeff says, there's certainly time. We won't be sending this out till the end of July. So. All right, Jeff, credit cards then? There was a summary page first before you turn over control to me. Yeah. So we're in the process of converting all of our credit cards. And when I say credit cards, I'm not talking about revenue. I'm talking about our purchase cards over to SunTrust Bank. The benefits of going with SunTrust, it's a completely automated system for reporting, and it is paper free. You're not going to have to attach receipts to reports anymore. Everything is electronic. There is a 1% cash back, which we have with some of our current cards, but not with the area card. Bank of America is the source for the area cards. Bank of America does offer cash back, but they charge a fee for being in that program. So it's really not worth it. There's no fee here. You should be seeing some miscellaneous revenue on your monthly reports where you'll be getting 1% cash back on your purchases. There's the online system includes coding for the general ledger. And you don't have to wait till the end of the month. Purchases can be coded throughout the month. You can also have non-card holders access the system. So any administrative person that you have or assistant that you have, someone who helps you with your finances, they can access it, but they're not card holders. And there is an online approval process for everybody's work. I'm going to just give you a little bit of background on why we're doing this. We currently have just a little bit short of 50 credit cards in use between state employees and area program managers. And they are from 4 different banks. We've kind of pieced this together over the years and been able to open a new account and add credit cards but that's gotten to the point where it is very difficult to manage. It's centrally managed. That means a person in the state office downloads all the monthly statements, sends them out to you. We have to make sure we get back the paper reports and then upload them to the system. So, and with credit cards, it won't come as any great surprise. I'm sure almost all of you have experienced this. We get probably once a week, we probably get a bank contacting us and telling us that there's suspicious activity on a credit card. Sometimes it's fraud, sometimes it's not, but they contact us and we have to look into it. So centrally managing all that has just become very time consuming. So a great system like SunTrust has puts a little bit, it does away with the need for some of those manual processes like downloading monthly statements and preparing paper reports. So we're in the process of converting. We've started the process. We currently have several state employees, like a half a dozen state employees, who are using the card, learning the system, and we're getting feedback from them and learning things that are good and bad about the system. We're about to request cards. We'll request cards in the next day or two for the rest of the state employees. We will be contacting you guys, whoever is a card holder will be contacting you during August to get your cards issued. There is online training and we'll set that up. It's basically, so far, the feedback has been that the system is good and it's easy to follow. There's some issues with it, but there would be issues with any system. So we will set up training, get you cards. What we'd like you to do is when you get your card, just as it says at the last bullet point, when you get your SunTrust card, use it for 2 to 3 purchases. Keep your old card open while you're learning this new system. We'll then walk you through it, train you, and help you learn the system and get to the point where you're comfortable with using it, and then we'll close your old card. So we'll have a conversion period to get everybody used to the new system. And just to show you how easy it is, Jeff, if you want to now turn over control to me.
Just of the webinar.
Okay. So you should see a screen that on the left says SunTrust and on the right says Enterprise Spend Platform. This is my personal login, and since I'm the system administrator, there's more information here than you would see under your login. But when we look at my card here, this is where the purchases are that I've made on my card. And if we go to expenses, you can see that I've got a couple of charges out there that I have not coded yet or uploaded the receipt to. Uploading of receipts is very easy. It happens in one of 2 ways. You upload a receipt from a PDF. So when you get a receipt, you can scan it, or when you download it from a vendor, you can just save it as a PDF and upload it to the system. Or there's a phone app and you can take a picture of it. So in case that didn't sink in before, we're going completely paper free here. There will be no need to submit paper reports and to attach receipts to it. And so I have this one, I have already scanned this Geiger receipt. So I'm going to click on it. And on the right-hand side is the four different segments of our general ledger. And so this is where you're going to do the coding. If you will bear with me just 1 second. Okay. So the first one is the general ledger code, then the department, project, and activity. To put in each code, you just click on that. You can have favorites. You can save certain codes that you'll be using frequently, or you can search all the codes. I'm going to search for this particular code as 7310. Found it, 7310 merchandise. I can either make it a favorite or I can just select it for this particular transaction. And then I'll just keep going. The department is 430, so that's already been saved as a favorite. I don't need to search. 430. Project code is summer games, so again, no need to search for it. And activity code is 0000 for default. So I've now submitted the coding, or I've now entered the coding for this particular transaction. Now I'm going to upload the receipt. I've clicked on link receipt, and I'm going to go to my image library. As you are making purchases, as you are getting the receipts sent to you, you can save them in the image library and code and upload them later. So you don't have to do everything at the same time. I'll go to the image library. It is a little hard to read in the image library. This is the receipt that I want. After you upload it, it's a lot easier to read and to confirm. So I'm going to link this. I have uploaded it. That receipt is now right here. And it's a lot easier to read. One issue we just noticed today, and we have sent an email to SunTrust to figure out what this means. This is the total amount of the invoice. This is $272.54 is the total amount. However, the system seems to be calculating tax, and there is no tax on this invoice. So this is why we said take the approach of just doing 2 or 3 transactions, because there's going to be questions as we go through. We're trying to figure out exactly why this happens. We just discovered it today. But that's it. I'm done with this particular invoice. And so I'm going to click on complete. Yes, Jeff.
Sorry. A question came in. Do all 4 codes need to be completed to be able to process, or can some be left blank, or do we put in 0000?
The last option. Yes, all 4 need to be done. All 4 are required. If you recall, when I started the process, they were red and they were showing the message, a required code is missing. But you can use the default in both. The activity code has a default of all zeros, and the project code has a default of all zeros. Don't use that unless you have to, because this is very valuable information to you later. When you get your financial reports, it helps you figure out what the expense is for. But there are occasions when the activity code or the project code is appropriate to be all zeros. But yes, all 4 are required.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Before I click on complete, any other questions about this?
None have come in.
Okay, so this particular invoice is complete and has been coded. And I'm just going to click on complete. Internet seems to be just a little slow tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Description is required. So I forgot to do that. Here's the description. This will upload to your financial statements. So this is where you want to put a description that's meaningful to you. Also, any identifying characteristics like an invoice number would be very helpful here. And so what I'm going to type in here, this was merchandise for summer games. And the invoice number is so this will appear once this is uploaded to our financial system. This will appear on your financial reports. Now I think it's complete. And it is. And it's jumped to the one other, it's already jumped to the one other invoice that I have out there that I have not yet coded. But to go back to the question that Jeff just received, you can see a required code is missing. So yes, all 4 codes are required. So lots of advantages, you know, no more paper, online and automated everything, 1% cash back for folks who have not been getting it prior to this. We'll keep you updated. We're as I said before, we're getting everybody in the state office up and running first, and we'll start you guys as soon as possible, probably sometime during August. So Jeff, you can take back control now. That's all I had
Great.
to go over, unless there are any more questions.
Looks like Greg has a question. Greg, I am going to take you off mute and you can ask your question.
Just a quick question. Just a quick question. The credit card limits remain the same?
Yes, they will. We'll put everybody's credit card limit when we open a SunTrust account. We'll put your credit card limit where it is now, but not related to the SunTrust account. You can contact us about your credit limit at any time if you feel you have a need for a different credit limit. We can do that on a permanent basis, or we can do that on a temporary basis.
Okay.
All right.
That does it.
Great. Thanks, Greg. All right. Looks like we are all set with questions. So if you do, these are one of the things, George is probably going to hop off after we're done here, and then won't be with us on Saturday. So if you do have any questions, you can email George directly, or you know, if you do ask one after he hops off, we can compile those and get it to him. So thank you, George. Let's have a muted round of applause for George's last area leader webinar until he becomes an area leader himself in retirement. Sorry, Harford County. All right. And with that, Mike, we'll turn it over to you. Just let me know when you want me to advance slides.
Okay. So a couple different things that we'll go through tonight. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here. So Jeff, go ahead, if you would. As Jeff mentioned at the beginning, we're in the process of bringing on board a new sport director. So Steve is working on that currently. He's handling all the stuff, including the National Invitational Tournament for golf, which is coming up this fall. Here are the athletes that we have settled on and teams. There have been several that had dropped, and I know he went back out to folks who had submitted other names, but this is the final roster for the teams and the athletes, and now we'll be identifying the head coach and HOD, potentially the same person, serving in both roles. But that's where we have that. If you want to go ahead, Jeff. Steve also posted, we're trying to collect to make sure that we have all of the different golf competitions in place. The 6 of them listed here are ones where we have received the sanction forms, and so we know things are good to go. The next slide lists those that we are aware of or believe are happening, and are looking for the sanction form so we can post the things on the information on signing up for them on the coach resource page for golf. And then the next page still ties with golf a bit, but I believe it talks about some budgetary things. So a couple things. George had indicated that you'll be getting in the next couple weeks the budget process and timeline and so on that he shared there. So looking at the 2020 budget, and what's key here is we're not talking about, for golf at least, we're not talking about this year's golf tournament or this golf season that's now underway. But for golf and for winter and summer games, we do anticipate the likelihood of some changes. For winter and summer games, we're meeting with Towson University and Whitetail and the Ramada out in Hagerstown to look at changes and budget implications. The costs have gone up steadily each year. We haven't adjusted the expenses for that much, so we'll be nailing those down as we go forward. Similarly for Towson, not sure, I don't want to cause a panic with folks. Not sure how many folks looked at the some of the diagrams that were in the University Union on the first floor that showed what the construction all will be. But we do know that as if they stick to their plans, we will not be using the Susquehanna room again, because the Susquehanna room will not be in existence starting with next spring at Towson. That's where we had our meals and such. So with that, and looking at some of the other construction and things that they're doing, we are absolutely confident that they will take care of us every way that they can. But we do know that lodging, for example, is at different costs depending upon which building we're in. They worked with us this year when, and the Glen complex, which we did not use this year, is the least expensive of the housing options. We don't know that it's going to be back online next year. So we were in more expensive housing. They worked with us and kept us within our budget this past year because that was not expected. But we do need to get with them and see what the options are. So we do expect that there might be, or probably will be, some adjustment to registration fees for summer games and winter games. That would be both for folks who are on site as well as day of for winter games, and also for anything above the 3-to-1, what we sometimes call the fully loaded cost. May have adjustments, but we should know those by mid-August so you can factor them in. The other change, and this is a possibility, it is not definite, but it's an idea that's been floated that we think has some merit. It needs to go through the golf sports management team as well as the sports committee, but to make some changes in terms of the golf season and competition for folks. So to start with, for those of you who don't know, there's this huge spreadsheet that we've been using to track scoring. Based on some analysis that we've done, we are very likely going to be eliminating that. We'll still track scores, but it will be a much simplified way. And coming with that much simplified way, it allows some new options in terms of competitions. What we also have been doing, whether folks know it or not, but we've been working out the divisioning for golf, utilizing scores that were, for most folks, were scores from both the current year or the current season, as well as digging back into the previous season to get at least 3 or 4 scores or rounds for their to work out their division. So it has some history as well as some of the current. Obviously, the more recent or more updated the scores are, the better. So one of the things that we are considering, it is not a decision, but again, want to make sure that you're aware, is looking at potentially increasing the number of rounds that a player or a team has to play from 2 up to 4 or 5 starting in 2020. So again, it has no effect this year. But with the additional rounds being what I'll call non-tournament based, it could be as simple as an athlete and their partner go out and play a round of golf and get their score. It could be that they do a round, if they're 9-hole, they do a round during the practice session or somewhere along those lines. So, but there may be in some situations a cost associated with that. So we expect to have that decided with the golf team and the sports management team in the relatively near future, at least as to whether you should build it into your budget, even if it doesn't come to fruition in 2020. So we just want to let you know that ahead of time and be aware of it. Again, can't stress this enough. One, this decision has not been made. So please don't go running out and telling your golfers or your coaches or whatever that this has suddenly changed. And secondly, even if it does take place, it will not affect the current season, the current 2019 season. Okay. Jeff, go ahead with the next slide, if you would. And I'm sorry, actually, any questions on that? Did anybody have any questions? We can talk some more about this on Saturday if folks have some input or some thoughts on the validity of this or whatever. This all ties into getting more athletes playing more games or more competition, and particularly something like golf, where you really learn the game by going out there and playing on the course. Seeing no questions, no hands raised, I'll go on. So we've gotten some information finally in the last 4 days, I guess it is, for the 2021 World Games. This is the World Winter Games in Sweden. And as luck would have it, they're changing things to some degree from how they've been done before, and we're on a relatively tight time frame. So we need to submit. So what they've done first, the overall number of athletes who are attending or being included in the games in Sweden dropped from somewhere around 3,500 in the past for Winter Games down to about 2,000, give or take. That's not exact, but the bottom line is close to a third fewer athletes will be in attendance, and as that means a third fewer slots across the board. What they also have done is they worked out the initial quotas going out to the regions of the world, North America being a region. So North America has received its quota, and they are now asking us, again, on a fairly short time frame, to turn around and put in our request. Our intention has been for World Games, and particularly for USA Games, but also for World Games, to have the sports committee make that suggestion or the determination of what we would ask for, subject to costs and so on down the line. Unfortunately, the time frame does not allow us to do that, other than by sending something out to the sports committee and getting an email approval. Unfortunately, the next meeting of the sports committee is already set at the 30th of July. So we are proposing, subject to the sports committee approval, that we request 2 alpine slots, an intermediate female and an advanced male. That's based on trying to get both male and female athletes for both sports, or at least requesting them, and trying to match up where the best or the greatest numbers might be. So we're looking at an intermediate female and an advanced male, and then for snowshoeing, a male and a female athlete slot for what's called level 2. That's athletes who do the 100, 200, 400, and potentially the 4x100. We would include in that, if we get one of those slots or both of those slots, we would include those athletes who are in the next highest level, which is the 200, 400, 800, because they could be doing the 200 and 400 there. If we get all 4, we certainly will accept all 4 slots. Jim has agreed to this. He's actually enthusiastically agreed to this. Realistically, we don't expect to get all 4, but we might. So this is, again, it's subject to the sports committee giving its approval, and unfortunately, again, we have this fairly tight time frame that we need to get it in, but wanted to let you know. The plan in terms of fundraising, so backing up a step, these quota requests or the suggestion and the slots here is based not just on how many athletes participated in each level and each gender at the most recent Winter Games, but also Steve had sent out to folks, to the areas, your potentially eligible folks, and gotten your approvals of who you thought, without talking to the athlete, of course, at this point, or the family, but who you thought would be potentially capable of handling a trip of this type, again, where we wouldn't know that we would have anybody going as a coach from Maryland. So going with people who they had not met other than at training camp, and being gone in a foreign country for an extended period of time. Also, the availability to travel to a multi-day training camp here in the United States. So this is all based off of that list. We will not be sending out a list to add anybody to that. We will be asking you to validate those lists, though, as well. Given that with the golf NIT, which I referenced earlier, we had subsequent to us accepting the spots for the NIT, we had several athletes get pulled out by their area leaders because they didn't think that they were appropriate. So we will be asking you to revalidate and sign in blood that that the athlete would be appropriate if they're put into the selection pool to go forward. But again, we're not opening up the pool other than, like I say, to potentially remove some people because you had all that time back after Winter Games to provide that information to Steve. So wish I had more information. We're getting it as we can, and I should say the folks at Special Olympics North America are getting it to us as quickly as they can as well. But just real quick before we go on, any questions on that? Don't see any hands raised or anything typed in. So let's keep the train rolling. Okay. So twice we've, in the spring and then again in the last couple area memos, we had asked for nominations for folks to become instructors for coaching Special Olympics athletes, which is the core training course that's required for all coaches under the new model. The T3 stands for Train the Trainer, so TTT, Train the Trainer. We got no new nominations back in the spring. There were 3 folks who had identified themselves several months prior, and we did a special training for them. And to date, we've only gotten 2 folks so far recommended for the training that we had originally scheduled for early August. Given that, I mean, the deadline hasn't hit, but there's really no inkling that we'll have a significant number of folks added. And we need to have 7 to 10 to make the session worthwhile. Just the nature of it doesn't work with 1 or 2 people or fewer. So we're doing a couple things. 1, we will shift the Train the Trainer session a little later, so you have some time. So it's after Labor Day. It's now set for Saturday, September 7th at Special Olympics Maryland headquarters. That'll allow, again, more time. We'll also continue doing some direct recruiting. Also, for those individuals who, you may remember, we trained some folks from the areas in 2014. Most of those folks have not done a training of this type in 3 years or more. There have been some changes, not wholesale, but enough that it's worth talking about, at least in terms of the content. And there, definitely are some changes in terms of process that we've got. So we will hold for these individuals only what I'm calling a refresher webinar on Thursday, August 8th. We'll send something out to them. And following that session, they'll know the process. We'll share the process with you as well, at least in a rough structure on Saturday at the area leader meeting. But following August 8th, we can start scheduling some additional sessions with these individuals. The ones who are listed there that have an asterisk next to their name, they require that refresher course, assuming that they want to continue. I don't know that all of them do. I have deleted from this list a number of folks who either have or after her farewell party tonight will be moving out of the state. And so we know or have otherwise indicated they're no longer available. So if you're wondering about someone's name who doesn't appear on there, that's likely why that's the case. If there's an asterisk next to their name, then we need to have them go through this refresher course. And again, or for a refresher webinar. It's not, whereas the main session is a full day session. The refresher is I'm blocking 2 hours. It may not be that long even. We also have Anna McCauley, Melanie McManus, and Rennie Springhill, who went through the training that we arranged for them this spring. And again, they're trained. We had to really adjust things because we had so few involved with it. So if you're wondering, well, wait, why did you train those three and you're looking at wanting 7 to 10? It's because of we had to make and adjust things so much for those three that we're setting that standard and making sure that we have 7 to 10. So anyway, we'll touch more on this, but please do be thinking about this. This is a great opportunity for your folks or for your area to have someone there who not, just, anytime, day or night, they can do the training for you, but that they can do it on a more regular basis and more immediately available. And then Mike Myers has asked, have the folks who've been nominated been made aware of the change of date? No, we set the date today. So but I will say that the individual from Baltimore City will certainly be invited, and we'll send the change of date to him, as well as the individual, or I guess it's actually a couple from Harford County. We'll also get that. That Nancy Schmidt put a nominee in over the weekend. So anyhow, so we're setting it with this, and hopefully we can move forward with great success. Jeff, you want to go to the next slide? Okay, so as you saw through various emails or personally experienced, not Special Olympics North America, but the SOI's tech crew or whatever, someone decided that we weren't busy enough in the 3 weeks leading up to Summer Games, and our weekend for Summer Games is the busiest weekend or the most common weekend for Summer Games across the country. And they made the decision that they were going to change the process on how protected behaviors were being handled. And this is strictly for U.S. programs, so it's not like, there was something else going on elsewhere in the world for this. Anyhow, so we worked through that. A couple things with that. First, we found, as Jeff had indicated in previous emails, that the volunteer has to create an account, and the system won't allow a volunteer under the age of 16 to create an account. It also requires that each person have a unique email in order to get, so that if there's several folks in the family who are using the same email address, they can't create separate accounts for those individuals to go through what's the Special Olympics Learning Portal, which is the current way that protected behaviors is being handled. The other thing that we found was, this was a surprise to us and to the folks at Special Olympics North America and SOI for that matter, that when people created the account, while they may have been instructed, if they weren't just going and exploring on their own, they may have been instructed to sign up using the subject category of protected behaviors. Many people saw a subject category of sports and checked that off as part of the setup process. Unbeknownst to anybody at that time, that then had a course pushed to them that was about World Games coaching. It was a mistake. It was a bug in the system. We found out about it 3 weeks ago, and immediately connected with the folks there. They assured that they were checking in and getting it resolved with the tech folks. As of Friday, I guess, or Thursday of last week, apparently that had not been the case. So I spoke with or connected with folks again this morning. They indicated that that will be resolved. They promise it by the end of this week. I asked them to please send it to me, a confirmation when that's the case, and we'll go and test it again. The content, this World Games coaches course, there's nothing wrong with the content. It's kind of interesting. It's sort of a almost a general orientation session, but it doesn't serve to help anyone with any kind of a certification. It is not in any way, shape, or form an alternative to coaching Special Olympics athletes or coaching unified sports or any other content. It doesn't add anything from a certification standpoint to anybody. And so to a certain degree, folks may be wasting their time. We have placed on our website, because we have no control over this platform, we have placed on our website a notice reminding folks to A, select protected behaviors, and B, to not bother taking the course. Realistically, that's not going to get everybody. We just know it. I mean, the people are people, and they're going to click on links and go searching with that. So anyway, so wanted to let you know that this is operating. We are getting, when folks do complete it, we are getting their certification notice, and we are updating in GMS as we get it through. We are looking at, on the next slide, and we'll discuss this on Saturday, we are, however, looking at an alternative. While the protected behaviors going through the learning portal, on a big picture, long-term horizon standpoint or perspective, it's a really good thing. It'll tie people into getting additional learning opportunities and so on. The problem is that there are some bugs in the system right now that are causing some frustration. Plus, they do not anticipate making the change. I'm not sure how they're planning to do it for other folks, but making a change on the age issue. So Jeff and I, I'll give more to Jeff on this, have come up with an idea to basically host it ourselves. It won't be as elaborate and such, but we do have a recording. We can tweak it if we need to, of the content for protected behaviors that we can post, and then have folks do the exact same quiz they would otherwise do using Google Quiz. I personally haven't used Google Quiz, but it captures the information, it adds it into a database, it has all that stuff there, and then we can go in and check it either on a daily or every 2 days basis to see who's completed what. So it would resolve the minors system or the issues of folks under the age of 16, and if we direct folks here, it'll eliminate any other kind of confusion along those lines. Realistically, there's still going to be folks who are going to go through the Special Olympics system on the main on their main system, because they'll go looking for it and they'll stumble across it and they'll click there. But we can direct them to this. So anyway, Jeff, do you want to fill folks in on what you're going to send to them and ask if folks have time to do it, so that we can have a productive conversation on Saturday?
Yeah, definitely. So as Mike said, what I've set up is a YouTube version of the protected behaviors training, as well as a Google quiz. I have an extra O in there. That's something else. So I will send out the link to the training as well as the Google quiz, and I will send out the SO Learning Portal. And I believe I've sent that out in other emails. If you have time, I'd love for you to take both options to provide feedback. As Mike said, we definitely need troubleshoot for our minor volunteers. But if it works for our minor volunteers, then we raise the question, could we just put all of our volunteers through this? But we want to get your feedback there. So if you have time before Saturday to take these quizzes, we would certainly ask you to do that. And this will count as updating your protected behaviors training. So it's a little added incentive. So if you needed to update it, or you're 2 years in, this will bump that back another 3 years. not each time you take it. So if you take it twice, it doesn't bump it back 6 years. So anyway, that'll be sent out, and I'll look forward to getting your feedback on Saturday.
Yeah, and we do appreciate your patience with this. Again, it threw us. It was a bit of more than a bit of a curveball. I rarely melt down, but I think I pretty much did when we saw that had changed. Again, I think it was just 3 weeks before summer games. But I think with this, we'll be in pretty good shape. With either of the options, we can make it work, and just want to minimize the confusion that folks and any frustration that folks are having. Okay, Jeff, go ahead. I think the next, yeah, okay. So the next slides are not all of, but several of the slides of charts and information and such that we received on from the evaluations for summer games. And thank you to everyone who completed them. We had nearly 500 responses, 499, which is double what we've gotten the last 2 years. So that's great, and got a lot of feedback there. And we're going through. I've actually had a chance to read all of the comments, and as one would expect, they're somewhat all over the map. But what we'd like you to do when Jeff sends the slides out is you can look through the charts and stuff, and I'll highlight a couple things momentarily, and we'll talk about them more in depth on Saturday. But want to get your feedback, particularly around some things with the opening ceremony, but also around some of the other major changes that we made with swimming, with bocce, and a couple other things to get some feedback on there. In particular with the opening ceremony, it's around the parade, which we'll see. We think we got some pretty solid information, but some folks were certainly not happy, and we understand that, and we're working also to try to get some additional athlete feedback. Jeff, you can go to the next slide. I think, yeah, that's just the responses. We can skip to the next one. So overall satisfaction, overall, and on all the charts here, the bright green or Kelly green almost are the ones who were either very satisfied or strongly agreed with the statement. Then the more like a pea green were those who either were somewhat satisfied or somewhat agreed, on up to the red. So sort of like a 5-level traffic light, if you will. So we overall satisfaction definitely went up, which was great. And on the next slide, so again, one of the key things with opening ceremonies, again, you can read through that. Next one. And that just lists the changes that we went through. If you can go to the next one. Yeah, one thing I did do is I sat down and looked at reality, because surprisingly, in several of the comments, and these are people's perspectives, even though they're factually wrong, and I do mean they are absolutely factually wrong, it's still their perspective, and that's how they're seeing things. And so that's important. It doesn't matter a lot of times if the facts aren't accurate. In some of these things, at least in terms of how people support things, they're looking at it. So the reality is the overall total opening ceremonies for the last several years have been about 2 hours. The 2013, I've based most of these off of watching video recordings from those years and timing out the different sections and such. And this past year, I actually wrote them down and timed them throughout myself. The 2013, where it says it was 1 hour and 30 minutes, it looked like that video might have been cut or cropped or edited down. So I don't know that that's accurate. But anyhow, we did go from about 2 hours down to 1 hour and 10 minutes. Folks were saying it was longer, several folks, not all. So again, there's still the perception that it's longer or too long. The parade, I don't know that anybody said the parade was longer, but many people thought that there wasn't any difference in the timing of it. When it went from 45 minutes to an hour for the past couple years down to almost exactly 15 minutes. Might have been a couple seconds off of that. And again, we weren't trying to rush through it, but again, there's still this perspective of, it didn't make any difference there. Similarly, although to a lesser degree, the other parts of opening ceremonies got trimmed down as well, by 10 minutes to 20 minutes or so. Also, now we didn't time it. We don't have any recording of this elsewhere, but the time to get out of the arena and then the time from the end of ceremony to the last bus was actually remarkably quick. Everyone was out within 20 minutes of the arena, and the last bus departed 10 minutes after that. So kudos to George and his team. The other thing, there are a couple folks who indicated that we started 20 minutes late. I'm sorry, there's one person who gave that time. Other folks said that when, again, it started exactly on time. So I'm not sure what the perspective is there, but would really be helpful to hear that. So we know that there were a lot of folks who liked the biggest change, the most controversial change was the parade. And we did it as a test this year, as we said several times. But Jeff, if you can go to the next slide, we'll probably blow through a couple of them. Yeah, you can go to the next one. Again, this just has the breakout. The length overall, that's fine. Just go to I think the next one is the parade. Yeah, so we asked for their perspective on the parade. We had, I think it was 28 athletes respond, and actually they were the second most positive in terms of the parade being changed. But we also recognize that the athletes who maybe completed the online survey aren't a true reflection of the broad scope of our athletes. They may have more technical skills, certainly would likely have better reading skills than many of our athletes might in order to fill out or actually respond to the survey and some other things. But what's really noticeable there is that the biggest negative is with the family members. So I'm not sure, and with the comments, many of them were really surprised. They didn't know anything about it. So there's some communication issues there. But would really appreciate some input there. Overall, still almost 60% really liked, strongly agreed it was a good move, and close to 75% either strongly or somewhat agreed with that. We're on the positive end. So there's still very strong support there, but we want to be sure that if we were either to repeat it or make it the standard going forward, that we're really reflecting the wants and desires of the athletes and such, and the families as well. But I think with the families, there may be more of a communication piece potentially with that. So anyhow, give it some thought. Look through the rest of it. I'm not going to go, Jeff, you can just kind of go through. This is the overall length question. There's a couple more on ceremonies. Keep on going. Transportation, we had some questions on. And such. Transportation had some nice improvements. Then I only put the stuff in here for swimming, but if you can click through with some of the ratings on swimming, had some improvement over previous years. There were 6 or 8 questions specifically that we did a breakout by sport on in terms of venue, families, volunteers, so on, and there were varying. And then I also provided you with the overall for this year of divisioning, officiating, so on down the line. So give it a look. We'll have copies on site on Saturday as well, but would like to do, we don't always do a deep dive after every event with the area leaders, and we certainly don't do it after every summer games, but there were, we counted up the number of changes, significant changes that we made. It was somewhere close to 25, when typically in a given year it might be 5. And we think it's a good time to get some feedback. We tried doing some webinar sessions post summer games with folks, and they were useful. Those folks who attended were very helpful and such, but it was only a handful of folks who participated in them. So I want to try to get some more info from you guys. So I think that's it on mine, unless anybody had any questions. And again, specifically the stuff, the ratings on summer games, and that stuff, we'll go into depth and further discussion on Saturday. But I don't see any hands up.
Yeah, it doesn't look like any question.
So that's great. Either I've overwhelmed folks or bored them to tears. So, or both. So, I think that's it for me. I'll stay on the line muted in case anything else pops up that needs my attention. But thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Taking a quick look at some development updates again. This is mostly to cover to go over what we're going to cover on Saturday, and just to get you starting to think about some discussion points. So Nate will be with us on Saturday morning, and certainly he and I want to reinforce the idea of collaboration with the state and the local programs. I am really encouraged by how we're working together and making sure that there's revenue shares, collaborative fundraising opportunities, and ultimately driving more fundraising opportunities to the local program. So that's really good. That's really exciting. Some things that he'll be covering are roles and responsibilities updates as staffing changes, people move on, we bring on new team members. There's always going to be some roles and responsibility changes. So we'll go over that with our development team as well as our marketing team. We're going to show you the Classy website for peer-to-peer fundraising and admin access for reporting. So as George alluded to, we are out of Blackbaud when it comes to our peer-to-peer fundraising sites for things like Over the Edge, our plunge pages, and your inspiration walk pages and those types of things. So we're going to show you that as well as the admin access for reporting so that you have access to the back end of things for information and reporting on yourselves. So revenue history and vision for 2020 to 2025. We're going to take a look at how we see revenue growing, some campaigns and ideas that we have, and how we'll work together to accomplish those things. And if you remember from our strategic plan, one of the big differences is that while we do have separate accounts for state and area, one of the things that we're going to be doing more and more of is reporting on one collective number, right? So this is going to be all about how we're going to work together in these campaigns moving forward to bring in more money for the organization across the state. Collaborative opportunities in 2019, if you consider that the plunge is essentially right around the corner, this is our last shot to talk about Polar Bear Plunge and get a really good head start on these types of opportunities. If you consider our next meeting is going to be in November, that doesn't leave a lot of time between November and January to start getting organized. We have to do that starting now. And building revenue in 2020 and using an exercise in collaboration for how we can do that. And then the last piece we'll talk about is corporate partnerships. How do we collaborate, and a prospect pipeline. So as we are working with sponsorship at the state level, and you are working with sponsorship at the local level, how we can work together, use local assets for state sponsors and leverage state events for your local partners. So again, those are just some things that we're going to be covering in development and marketing on Saturday. So some good stuff there. I realize that's not a lot of detail, but we will talk more on Saturday. And some local program pieces. First thing I wanted to talk about, I think in our last area director meeting, I was really excited because Baltimore County, through Jamie Vallis, put their hand up to be our Unified Fitness Club pilot program. So as health and fitness continue to be immersed within Special Olympics, this idea of a Unified Fitness Club came out, and honestly, I think I said this back then, A lot of what we're doing is borrowed from Special Olympics Connecticut. They have a very good model for unified fitness clubs. The whole idea being non-competitive fitness opportunities for people with and without disabilities to participate together. It's very participatory. So Baltimore County had a unified walking club. Their walking club engaged roughly 19 athletes and 8 unified walkers. It engaged both family members and non-family unified walkers, which is really cool that we got some unified walkers from the community as well as the family members of the athletes who are participating. While it did not produce new athletes, so we didn't have athletes sign up for Special Olympics just to do a unified walking club, it does provide another touch point. And as we've seen, the more touch points that we have with our athletes, the better the retention. So these are really important. They had weekly meetings that lasted about an hour to an hour and a half. They started with some light stretching before their walk. They walked as a group around Honeygo Park, and they took breaks for water. They would learn new exercises while walking, so like bench push-ups and all that good stuff. The program will go for 10 weeks. I believe right now they're on calendar week 7 or 8, I think. Rain has certainly stopped some of the walking time, but it'll be a 10-week program. So I would love to see more of these unified fitness clubs across the state. It is a great way to supplement your training programs with health and with fitness in a kind of low impact to the program activity, but high impact for our athletes and their families in terms of getting them out, getting them moving, and having a good time in a unified setting. So how do we do these? To start your own unified fitness club, you would identify your group leader and activity. Baltimore County chose walking. I think that one's ideal because it's the largest, kind of can engage the most people through walking. But any approved non-competitive fitness activity will work. So you'd let me know what you're looking at. If you have a lot of cyclists in your area, you could do a cycle club. You could do running. You could do walking. If you have a partnership with a gym, you could do, gym club, Soldier Fit, what have you, but some type of non-competitive fitness activity. The group leader that you identify must be Class A with coaching unified sports training. So that's going to be really important as it relates to encouraging positive relationships for people with and without disabilities to come together. So Class A needs a background check, needs protected behaviors, general orientation, and we are going to ask that they have that coaching unified sports training taken care of. You'd identify your locations and schedules. Now, the Baltimore County model chose one park that they were going to walk in every single week. Other fitness clubs, especially in Connecticut, they wanted to visit every walking path in the county. So they visited their 5 parks within the local vicinity and did that. So you identify the locations and the schedule that you want. And as you're letting me know all these things, you're going to advertise and submit your roster to me. Those who participate must be registered athletes to participate, and your unified walking partners must be Class A. So those are the 2 requirements. We do not bend just because it's non-competitive there. It's important to log your activity. Take weekly attendance so that you know who's there. You're going to log your miles walked or your miles cycled or anything like that. Make sure you take team pictures and active pictures throughout so that we can continue to advertise this. And then you're going to work with me on incentives and prizes for milestones reached. So as our inaugural walking club, they're all going to get t-shirts in Baltimore County, but the way that Special Olympics Connecticut does it, if an individual walks 20 miles over the course of the season, they get a water bottle. They get a t-shirt for 50 miles. A team, something if the team collectively walks 100 miles over the course of their season with the same people. So those types of things are all great. And really, the idea is provide more opportunities for our athletes to engage in some type of fitness activity. the note I put at the bottom is really important. The Unified Fitness Club activity is supplemental to our sports program. So this absolutely does not take the place of good quality competitive sports programming. This is another opportunity that our athletes can take part in. It does not take the place of standard sports programs, nor count towards competition advancement. So they're not, qualifiers. They are not part of a training program that would count towards an 8-week. This is completely separate there. But again, it's a low to no cost way to engage more athletes in the community. The thing that I really liked about the Baltimore County program is that it does engage a good number of family members as well. And I think that we've seen our athletes who are on kind of their own health and fitness journeys are much more successful when their family members, their caretakers are involved with them. So just really good reinforcement all around. So Unified Fitness Clubs, I am a big proponent of them. I was really impressed with it in Baltimore County and certainly appreciate their work and Jamie Vallis's work as they've been going through it. So we're going to talk a little more on Saturday about starting your own Unified Fitness Clubs, but certainly if any other programs would be interested in starting that, we can get you going. SOMD advanced updates. So Montgomery County will serve as our pilot program. Thank you, Shelley. So you may remember we had, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, our webinar about SOMD advanced. The whole idea is to work county by county to provide, to work collaboratively to get strategic plans for each of our local programs. The self-assessment will be out this week. And again, even though some of you will not be doing SOMD Advanced this year, we're using this to get a baseline of information across the state. It will help us identify program standards, but will also be used to identify highlights within each program so that we can work more collaboratively with area leaders across the state to support each other. So we're going to ask for one self-assessment per program, but we do encourage you to enlist the feedback from others so that you as area directors can get a really good vision of what's happening out there. Someone's perspective is certainly valued there, so certainly want to do that. So that's what we have for SOMD Advanced. We had our first meeting with Shelley. I think things are all positively moving forward with that. We're looking forward to working with Montgomery County there, so appreciate Shelley's willingness to put her hand up there, and we'll get those self-assessments to you this week so you can start filling them out. Last piece of pseudo-new information for this webinar is online idea sharing. So coming out of, I think, the last area leader meeting, it might have been Shelley, it might have been Bob Baker, but the whole idea was being able to share ideas, questions, and concerns between area leaders in a message board type setting. So this, if you as an area director have a question, you can, log on, post it, and get some feedback from other area leaders. And I really like that idea, and I think that that's definitely something that we can invest some time in. So I have looked at some programs. I think the best option is going to be Google Classroom. And we're going to be doing a demo on Saturday. You will not be required to be in this Google Classroom type online environment, but certainly encourage that you do. I think you're going to get some good resources out of it, as will the other area directors will benefit from your knowledge. Google Classroom is set up for, as it sounds, teachers to have online discussion groups with their students to be able to have them interact as they're doing homework and all that kind of projects. And I think it's cool, and I want to try using it for our group. So we're going to take a look at it on Saturday. Before then, you might get an invitation from Google to join the area director Google Classroom. It's not spam. That's actually from me. And we'll go ahead and take a look at that on Saturday. But again, I hope it's a good resource that people will take advantage of. I think it's going to be helpful. And just like we talked about using each other as resources in SOMD Advance, I think Google Classroom will be another tool that we can use to connect our local programs and our local leaders to work more collaboratively. So speaking of our 7:20 meeting, again, some discussion points that we're going to be looking at that I just want people to have a heads up that we'll be discussing. So come with your ideas. As Mike said, we're going to be taking a deep dive into Summer Games feedback just based on the number of changes and new things that happened this year at Summer Games. So have a chance to discuss that. Based on Mike's agenda, we're also going to be looking at some coach certification feedback, and then definitely the protected behavior feedback as well. Under development, like we talked about, collaborative fundraising opportunities, and certainly focusing in there on Plunge 2020. And then in local programs, the two of the big things that we're going to be talking about are family engagement and athlete engagement. So as part of the SOMD Advanced conversations that I've been having, an interesting point was brought up. I'm just going to have you think about this a little bit before we start engaging or discussing on Saturday. But Elizabeth, who's been working with us, asked me to describe our families using one of three words: non-participatory, supportive, or active. And I had to think long and hard about those three words, what they meant, and how I saw our family. So I thought the best place to start would be a discussion with the area leaders on how you see the kind of general landscape of the families in your program. Are they non-participatory? Are they supportive? Or are they active? And I also would like to discuss, how do we move people from non-participatory to supportive, and from supportive to active? How do we engage with these family members? Because I think that, one of the things that we typically hear at these meetings are, I need more, more volunteers would be great, more assistance on committees and our management team, we need more hands. And I think our families are a great place to look. So going to have that discussion. And then athlete engagement survey. So as we work with our Athlete Input Council, both in Maryland and in the Mid-Atlantic had an Athlete Input Council here, I guess, last week to look at some ideas that are happening in Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, DC, and other places as well. So we're going to be looking at having an athlete engagement survey that we certainly use our local programs and area directors to support the distribution and the collection of information. So just another point on our agenda. So looking quickly at our agenda for Saturday, you can see you can arrive around 9 o'clock. We'll have coffee, tea, and pastries available, and then we'll get started at 9:30. Nate's going to kick us off at 9:50 talking about development. As always, we've scheduled in breaks and lunch. Mike will have his standard two-part sports department updates and discussions. In the afternoon, we'll get into local program discussions, family engagement, athlete engagement, and then that online information sharing. So I think we should be good to get out by 3:45, 4 o'clock. Again, this schedule's tentative. I will share a more definite schedule as we get closer to the meeting, probably on Friday as things come together, but we'll do our best to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure it's a efficient and timely meeting, but also one where people can participate and provide insights. We always look forward to the good discussion there. So looking forward to seeing everybody on Saturday. And as I mentioned before, if you haven't had the chance to register, please do so that we can I can get proper numbers for food. Last slide is just a reminder. We'll be here on July 20th, that's Saturday, And then the next time we're all going to be together for a webinar is Tuesday, November 12th, 2019. So all those positions that we posted in the beginning, they'll all be filled. So we'll have lots of new team members in November, and we're looking forward to our area leader meeting on November 16th to wrap up our year. So that's the last slide, but I do want to open it up to any questions. So if you do have any questions, we'll hang on. Jeff Hagan asked, can we get advanced copies of the schedule and PowerPoint slides? Yes, I will make sure to distribute that on Friday, if that works for everybody, with the kind of finalized schedule for Friday. So I'll make sure that that's out on Friday afternoon.
Hey, Jeff, this is Mike. Just to clarify with that, are you sending the slides from tonight's session out? Because if not, I'll send the eval stuff out under separate cover so folks have a chance to look at it before Saturday.
Jeff, can you type the clarification there? Are you talking about tonight's slides about with the evaluations, or the slide deck that we'll use throughout Saturday?
Well, I'm actually asking you, Jeff. Are you
Oh,
you're going to send slides out from tonight?
Sorry, too many Jeffs. Yeah,
before
I
Friday.
will send out the slides from tonight.
Before Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
tonight.
I might have misunderstood. I heard that, and it's like I don't know if the folks will have a chance to read through stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Any other questions from anyone? And Jeff Hagan's response is, I want them all. Well, Jeff, get ready, because you're going to get them all. So I will distribute this evening's slides tonight, and then the finalized slide deck for Saturday, that will come out on Friday. So you will have them all. Any other questions from anybody? Great. Well, looks like no questions. So appreciate everybody's time this evening. Thanks for hanging in there with us, and look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday. If you do, we have one more question from Vicki, really fast. Oh, she just said thank you. Well, thank you too, Vicki. Always good to have you with us. And we'll see everybody on Saturday. If you need anything in advance, don't hesitate to email me or call me. I'm back in the office the rest of the week. So we'll be available for any questions. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.